everyone. Welcome to episode number 11 of The Well. I'm no longer pregnant. I have my little girl Prairie on the outside. So I think most of the well I was pregnant, and now she's here and she's 2 months old. And I'm loving it. And thank you so much to everyone who has offered. She's a really loud nurser. And you're very clicky with your nursing, aren't you? Thank you to everyone who has sent gorgeous messages and offered support and followed along on our journey. So thank you so much. Today, for this episode of The Well, I'm really excited because we have so much happening at Lovewell. We have all these new exciting products coming out. So since we launched, we've always had the 2 products, and now we have so many more coming. We have one that's going to be dropping in the next month. We have our rebrand that we're so excited to unveil. We've been working really hard on that. And then not only do we have one new product, we have a whole heap of new things coming out next year. We're opening up globally and just putting a lot of really good vibes and energy into the brand and creating a community of sorts. Because for us, it's not just about the products at Lovewell. It's really a lifestyle. It's really creating connection and community. And I think more than ever right now, that is what people are seeking out. They want something beyond just what they buy at the shop. They want to know the story, what's behind it, what's the narrative. They want transparency, they want integrity, and that's what we're all about at Lovewell. And I've just got off a bunch of phone calls the last few days. I'm feeling really excited, invigorated, and I can't wait to fold you in on all the exciting things that are happening at Lovewell right now. So in the meantime, we're going to continue doing The Well. It's been really exciting. We have so many plans in terms of how we are going to expand on the vlog series. So today I was sitting with my husband and I was like, what should I talk about today? And he was like, why don't you talk about disagreements? Because I think for so many people right now around the world, we are seeing disagreements. You weren't ready to be done. You weren't ready. Okay. We are seeing a lot of discourse. We are seeing a lot of people, opinions on opinions on opinions, and tons of separatism. That is something that I'm sure you all feel, no matter what side of the fence you sit on. I think we're all seeing it. We're seeing it in our friendship groups. We're seeing it around the world. I'm seeing it on social media a lot. Someone will post something and then there's all these polarizing comments and so much judgment, and it's feeling a lot less supportive. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was like, we got this, we're banding together. And now everyone's sort of heading in separate directions, and there doesn't feel to be as much unity. And I think it's all going to come to a head soon, which is really scary, but also probably inevitable. I mean, it's now been almost 2 years of our lives radically shifting, not just changing little bits here and there. Like, our lives look completely different from how they looked in 2019. So gosh, what a weird world. I was talking to a girlfriend yesterday and I said, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to do our very best. We're gathering information, we're gathering knowledge, we're figuring out what our plans are for our family. How do we get through this? How do we get through this? How do we get out and start to be living again in a world that feels normal? And this really has become our new normal, but is there a way to get back to what we were experiencing? And no matter what, it will feel like a different world because this has been such a great reset for people. And there are certainly silver linings that many people have gained throughout this experience. So Mark was like, why don't you talk about disagreements? And I was like, that is a really good idea, because we have disagreements no matter if we're in a pandemic or not. We have, oh yes, I saw. So here's my little babe who is such a such a little spitty girl. Of all my babes, her and Bodhi have been the ones that nurse and then throw it up. You good? Can I clean you out? So whether or not we're in the middle of a pandemic, there's always going to be moments in our lives that are going to feel really challenging because we're bumping up against someone else's opinion. So I wanted to talk about that for a moment, whether that's in business or friendships or your relationships, or you're having disagreements with a teenager, your children, whatever it is, family members. It happens, and it happens a lot. Oh, we weren't ready. We would like some more. Okay. So I think that one of the things that I have really learned as I've gotten older is I have a tendency to get on the defensive. And I don't know if you're anything like me. Some people shirk away from any kind of confrontation. They're like, oh, I don't want to be in a situation where it's confrontational. And sometimes when they do that, it means they're negating their own feelings and they're kind of squashing themselves just to avoid any kind of conflict. And that's a really normal human response. By the way, do you love that I'm wearing pajama pants under my dress? Keeping it real, guys, keeping it real. I think that's a really normal human response to conflict is, run away, this feels uncomfortable. So when I look at my patterns of behavior surrounding conflict and disagreements, I'm very different depending on who I'm in conflict with. So with my mum, for instance, if we're ever in a fight, I'm definitely a lot more opinionated. I feel confident enough to be very opinionated with her. And I push my point. And I think in the last couple of years, I've really softened with that, wanting to be much more open, much more gentle, and hearing her out. We have different sort of spiritual beliefs. And aside from that, we're pretty much on the same page about everything. But there are certain things that when we talk about them, they can get charged. And she wants to give her opinion, and I want to give my opinion. And really, what's the point of that? So if I'm trying to change her to believe the things that I believe, I'm really saying that actually your beliefs aren't valid and you need to conform to be on the same page with me. And that's very controlling. And I was a controlling teenager. I think there were moments in my life where, how do you feel? Are we all done now? I think in my childhood, there were times where it felt out of control. And the antidote to that for me was to find the control, try to find that control. And in turn, it meant that I found relationships where I was fixing. And that was all a control thing. And it hasn't been until, I would say, maybe about a year ago, I really had this epiphany that some of my control stuff came from a feeling, obviously, of being out of control in some aspects of my life. Like, all right, these parts of my life felt really wobbly or scary or emotionally unstable. So I would control the things in my life that I was able to. And that really did me a disservice in my relationships. So I now have been working on softening. I can get easily on the defensive, and I think we all can when we're in an argument and it's feeling really charged and someone says something about your way of being and you get defensive. And usually that stemmed from an emotion, a strong emotion that you're having in the moment, in that charged feeling, and it's passionate and it can get nasty. And I have always said with Mark, he's the one who I really practice this on because he's my person and he knows me so well. He knows me inside and out. He knows that I can get really charged and reactionary. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do with him is, if he has an opinion and I do not agree with it, and Mark and I are pretty much on the same page about a lot of things, I like to say, he grew up in sort of this radical political activist type family. And I can see my mum sitting there with towels. Come through, Mum. No worries. So he grew up in this sort of very radical political activist. Do you want? Yeah. Okay, thanks, Mum. She's so cute. I told her I was doing my video, and then sweet Mum's just standing there. I've got the towels. So yeah, he grew up in this really interesting family, and it is instilled in him to have a certain perspective on life and all the big things that are happening in life, how he feels about so many different subjects, and they're not always 100% aligned with mine. I grew up I had a relatively regular upbringing. I certainly didn't experience a lot of the things that Mark went through. And so the way that you're raised, it really it informs the fabric of who you are. So sometimes we aren't aligned with ideas, and sometimes they're big ideas. And so what we do and how we talk to each other and how we disagree, I think there's a really good way to disagree. And it's, you hear that term, agree to disagree. I think there's something really special about that, because if we were all on the same page, life wouldn't be interesting. There would be no growth. We wouldn't be learning from each other's experiences. And so it's about softening. How can you create a space in that your person, whoever you're engaging in this conversation with, your person feels safe enough, vulnerable enough to say, this is how I'm feeling. These are my opinions. These are my thoughts. This is what's coming up for me. And you sit and be quiet and you listen and you allow them to have the floor to lay out their points or their argument. And you really just listen to them instead of butting in. And I call that being reactionary. You're coming at it, you get a feeling and you interrupt. And that sort of spins the conversation in another direction, because that person has a train of thought that they're trying to get out, and then someone else comes in and sort of derails it and then moves you over here, and then the next person derails it and moves you over here. And that's why sometimes conversations end up going round and round and round in circles. So I have been really working on trying to, what we call, hold the space for the other person to come out and lay out everything that they want to say. Sit, listen. You can take note as you're going, all right, that's what I want to say to that piece. That's what I want to say to that piece. And using certain language when it's your turn to speak, or when you feel like you now have the floor. Using language like, I hear you. Thank you so much for sharing your opinions. I really value that you felt comfortable enough sharing that with me. And while I don't have the same feelings as you, I really want to let you know that I respect that this is your position and this is my position. And you share what your positions are, or you share what's going on for you or what's coming up for you. And sometimes you will feel really like you're in the right and they're in the wrong. And that's okay. And it's about not trying to change the other person and bring them over to your side. I think so many times Mark and I will get in a trap where it's just going round and round in circles. I'm accusing him of something. He's accusing me of something. I've misjudged something he's said or some behavior, or I'm feeling paranoid, or I'm feeling insecure. I'm sure that's okay. And so now we kind of just look at each other and I say, I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling insecure. This is the story I'm making up about this. So we're always creating stories, aren't we? I mean, if I look at Mark and I think he's being a certain way, the story I make up about that is because A, B, C, and D. This happened to him. He's not telling me this. this is coming up for him. And I create a narrative, and then I use what he says to pick out pieces from what he's saying to add to my narrative. And it's crazy making. So instead, softening, looking at your side of the road and saying, how am I participating in this situation right now? What is it in my behavior that is adding fuel to the fire? How can I just create a place where it feels really safe for us to air our feelings, our grievances? And even if you're really angry at someone and you really feel like they've done wrong by you, still coming at them from a soft place always, to me, ends up helping you gain the outcome that you desire. And even if that's just for that other person to hear you out and to listen, like, hey, that felt really uncomfortable for me. I'm really sorry that this is happening and there's discourse between us right now, but I would really love to, if you're up for it, like, get into it with you. Let's talk about it. Let's unpack it bit by bit. And always trying to remain, I say, soft, compassionate, understanding, and loving. Soft, compassionate, understanding, loving. And keeping that as the default mode for conversations that are going to be uncomfortable. And I think this applies so much right now, because so many of us are having conversations with people where you're trying to see how they feel about certain things, and you're hearing, or you're being a supportive friend to someone who's really going through it. And so many people are having a really hard time right now. And you might not always agree with their opinion, but if there's a way to converse that feels really supportive and loving and understanding, I'm seeing friendships break up right now. I'm seeing so many arguments. Everything feels really politicized. And I'm just hopeful that if we all were a little bit more conscious in terms of how we're communicating with one another, really taking a beat, it's so important not to act out of reaction. Have the feelings. I'm even seeing this in my kids. I saw it in my oldest son. He's been getting into trouble a little bit here and there because he's such a passionate guy and he will react. And so we've been talking in our family a lot about, I do that too. I have that same charge, that burning feeling, and I want to react and lash out. I get it. But if we can just feel the feeling, it might feel like it's about to explode, and then take a deep breath, let it sit in your body. Think about, all right, how's that making me feel? Let the emotion and the charge dissipate before you stop and then react, and then speak what your truth is, whatever that is, and create a place that feels open. And I'm telling you, your relationships will feel better, your friendships, your working environment will feel better if you can just stop, listen, talk, get into it. And the anxiety before you have those kinds of connections and those talks sometimes feels way worse than when you're in it. And it's almost like you're just letting off steam. It's feeling so good to finally be able to speak your truth in a way that feels wonderful, communicative, and without the judgment and without the anger, which can make anger. And I say this to Mark, if he ever, like, he definitely has a louder voice than I do when we talk. And sometimes I say, even without you realizing, the louder in volume your voice goes, the more I go smaller. And it is just something I notice in our conversations when we're having an argument or a disagreement. And we remind each other, like, soft voice, let's keep the volume at the same level, and let's keep it quiet and loving, and eye contact. That's another really important thing, eye contact. nodding, open face, not having reactions to what they're saying, and really trying to have conscious conversation. This is a 20-minute video. It's easier said than done. Certainly. I fail at it all the time. But I think as I'm getting older, I'm really craving a simpler, dramatic-free life. And I find that the drama comes from the big feelings. So if we can take ownership of those feelings ourselves without bringing them all to the table, I think that that is a really beneficial way of being able to just get deeper in those relationships around you, in your friendships, in your partnerships, with your children. And it's also helping kids, because kids sit in a place of big feelings all the time. And so having them just really stop, take a deep breath, calm your body, and then talk is a really beautiful thing for them. And it's a wonderful life skill. I didn't learn it until I was in my 30s, I would say. I still was fiery as anything. And then now, and Mark says, he's like, props to you. Like, there's much more of a gentleness and the softness that is coming through with age for me. And I love that place. I do not do well in dramatic situations. And I'm such a people pleaser. And so I find that if there's drama going on, or there's stress going on, or someone's feeling angry, like, I'll quieten, I'll soften. I'm like the dog at the dog park when the like aggressive dog comes up and they're like, they go on their back. Like, I'm that dog who's like, oh. So anyway, I think that there are much more beneficial ways of communicating with people when you don't necessarily align in your ideas. So that is it from me and Little Prayer. We will see you next week for episode, I hope I get this right, episode 12 of Lovewell. All right, guys, I'm sending love, and I will see you then.